Welcome to the Keys to Therapy. On today's episode, we're going to talk about what therapists wear. I think a lot of times people are so worried, especially when you've recently graduated, or even if you're still in grad school and it's a new internship, or if you are starting a new job. People are like, oh God, what am I supposed to wear in these places? I think that is a big piece of how we present ourselves, how we feel, even sometimes with the imposter syndrome. That fits into like, well, I need to look the part. I need to worry about how I present myself. Do I look like I know what I'm talking about? Do I seem professional enough? Sometimes people, if they're younger therapists, want to make sure that they don't look so young because they might be a little bit worried about how that comes across. Maybe young equals inexperienced to them. And sometimes therapists who are a little more established in their lives or a little bit older might be like, well, I don't want to dress too frumpy. I want to make sure that I still fit in, especially if they work with younger populations. So I think a lot of people tend to worry about what it is that they're wearing. And that's something that typically isn't discussed a whole lot in grad school, which is why I thought I'd make an episode about it here today. So when it comes to therapist clothes, there's this stereotype of the cardigan, the therapist cardigan. There'll be lots of memes that you'll see if you haven't already about therapists like getting their cardigans ready for the office and stuff like that. And I mean, it's true. I probably have at least like 20 in different lengths, different colors, different styles. So it's what I like anyway. And I think a lot of therapists tend to like it because it's like a layered look. So some offices I've been in have been freezing. And so it's nice to have that extra layer, and some have been hot. So if you have a shirt that you can take that cardigan off or at least roll the sleeves up, it's nice temperature wise, which might be why the cardigan's a therapist's staple for most people, but that's not all that you have to wear. So when it comes to figuring out what to wear as a therapist, the first consideration would be the population you're working with and the location of the place that you're working. So if you are working, interning, whatever, in say like a hospital setting or the VA or some sort of like government setting, you probably want to dress a little bit more formal. If you're going to be around a lot of like doctors, lawyers, different people that tend to dress on the more like professional side of things, then you want to sort of match what it is that they've got going on, like the vibe of the clothes there, so that you fit in. Also, I think sometimes in those situations, the more professional you look, the more you're establishing your role. So in a hospital setting, for example, patients tend to only be there for like a week or so, like 7 to 10 days is the average, I think. So you want to know that while you're there, you are easily identifiable as like you're the therapist based off of, your clothes and how you're presenting yourself. Same thing in like some sort of like formal setting like the VA. Most of the people who are working there may have already been used to wearing a uniform if they had been previously in the military. So they kind of create their own uniform with the more formal clothes. Plus it's a government building. So I think sometimes you want to make sure that you just sort of fit that little bit of a fancier standard. So that may be like dress pants, button-up blouses, cardigans. You're going to find different things that fit. Not necessarily heels. Flats would be fine. But working at the VA or hospital is probably not the setting that you're going to wear jeans to or sneakers or stuff like that. So I would definitely gear more towards like the formal businessy, business casual type clothes if you're in that setting. If you work as a school counselor, you're probably going to want to dress a little bit more casual. You're going to be talking to kids. So if they see somebody who looks like a lawyer, that's going to be a little bit more intimidating to them. So maybe like fun colors and patterns and things like that might be seemingly more acceptable in that type of setting. Jeans, depending on what your employer allows you to, or if they have a dress code, but probably like some dark jeans and a cute shirt, like a cute blouse would be presentable for females. For males, it might be something that's more like, dressy pants or khakis and a polo or something along those lines. Something that makes you look a little more professional, but at the same time, it's still pretty relatable. So those would be things to consider when you're working with kids. Plus, depending on the setting, you may be sitting on the floor a lot. If it's really young kids, you might be sitting crisscross applesauce on the floor with them all day. So you might not want to have the nicest, dressiest pants while you're doing that. Or if you do a lot of like art therapy or, arts and crafts and stuff like that with kids, you probably are not going to want the nicest, fanciest clothes. So make sure that you have something that's like kid friendly and messy friendly, but also, again, a little professional, a little relatable. If you are working in community mental health, for example, that one can feel a little tricky. I know when I worked in community mental health, it was like half substance abuse, half mental health. So the people on the substance abuse side tended to dress very formal. Almost everybody in their groups was court ordered to be there. They had to sign papers that verified how long the person had been there for, and that they were going to the classes and doing the things they were supposed to do. So it was just kind of a more formal setup to begin with. Us on the mental health side worked with all ages. I think the youngest I had was 4 at one point. So I might be doing sidewalk chalk in the back patio of the facility for an hour, and then coming in and talking to a 50-year-old divorcee about the end of her marriage. And then a teenage girl from a group home talking about how to adjust to life there. So you are sort of all over the place. So making sure that you're wearing clothes that are versatile. So I would wear a lot of jeans, like dark color jeans and flats to make it look maybe a little bit nicer than sneakers. And then sweaters like this. Usually like long sleeve shirts, again, cardigans and camisoles and stuff like that. But the jeans, I think, helped make it more relatable because with community mental health, you're serving a population that tends to be lower SES. So in my mind, dressing too formal puts a huge gap between where you are and where the client is. And, in therapy, they tend to say a lot of like, meet the client where they're at. And I think part of that is in how you dress. So if you're in a setting like that, where a lot of clients are coming in who maybe don't make a lot of money, might be intimidated by mental health, maybe their first experience ever going to that type of setting, with little kids who don't even fully understand what it is that they're doing, it might be nice to have something that makes you feel more casual, but also, like I said, a little bit of professional too. So really pay attention to what types of populations you're working with. Again, on the substance abuse side, if you're doing some of that, or that's primarily the route that you're taking, you might want to dress a little more formal. It's a stereotype, but it's also a little bit true that sometimes people with substance abuse tend to push a little bit more boundaries than people on the mental health side in the community mental health side, especially if it's court ordered. So I know that if you tend to look a little more professional, not that that's going to immediately grant you some more respect, but it definitely sets you apart from the room of like, here is my role as the professional. Now, I've known people on the substance abuse side who showed up in like jeans and sneakers, and they were like, I'm just going to dress like a normal person because that's more relatable. That's fine too. But I think if you were going to start at a facility like that, definitely go more towards the business casual side and then feel out how everybody dresses, because then you can kind of go up or go down. You don't want to start too low and then now you're like, oh gosh, everybody here is really formal. Or you show up too formal and it's not super relatable to the clients or even the other staff, and now you got to scale back. So if you can find somewhere in the middle to start with that type of job, that would be great. And then if you are in an intensive in-home type of setting, you may want to wear stuff, again, that's going to be a little more casual, that can get messed up, that can get kind of dirty or can get food on it or whatever else, depending on the age of the kids you're working at. Also, a lot of times with intensive in-home, you're in the person's home, so you may be sitting on their couch at their dining room table, and people who utilize those services have a range of ways that their household looks. So I've heard stories from friends of going into places where there was roaches on the walls and a lot of pets, and the house wasn't really kept up, and social services was involved, and that's why the family was doing intensive in-home to begin with. Or the opposite, that it was just an extra bonus, another service that the family could really utilize for their child. So the house was fine, and anything in the middle. So you want to make sure going into people's homes, again, maybe you don't look super, super formal. You aren't wearing your nicest clothes because you don't always know what that setting is going to look like. And you're traveling a lot. You were in the car a lot with intensive in-home. So you want to make sure that you have clothes that can kind of withstand the in and outs of the car and the different houses. So again, probably a little bit more towards like business casual and feel it out from there. Comfort matters when you're deciding what to wear as a therapist. It is huge. We sit a lot in this job, like all day. I know when I was in person, I would pretty much only get up to walk a client out, grab a next client, and then go sit back down for the next hour. So I don't even know. Luckily, there wasn't Fitbits then. It would have been like, you got 10 steps today, because there wasn't a whole lot of opportunity to get up and move. If you work with little kids, it's a little bit different. Or if you're able to do an activity that's a little, I don't know, some places will have like a basketball court or stuff like that where you can like go outside and throw a ball back and forth with kids. Or gosh, I've even had some adults that were like, can we walk? And there's a gazebo behind the building. Can we just go out there for the session? And that's what we did. So there will be those opportunities, but for the most part, you're going to sit a lot. So when you are buying clothes for work, sit in them. All of us at some point have had those pants that you've tried on. You've been like, wow, these fit really well. And you're looking in the mirror and you're like, okay. And then you sit in them and you're like, oh my God, my organs just got cut in half. Like it digs into your stomach. It's too high-waisted or it's too low-waisted. It fit great when you were sitting and it looked fine and then, or standing. And then the second you sit down, you're like, oh gosh, like there's this bulge of fabric or whatever the issue is. So make sure when you were trying on clothes to wear to work, especially pants, you were sitting down in them in the dressing room or at your house before you fully decide to commit to those pants. Stretch is your friend in every setting. So it does not matter your size. Stretch is your friend, especially when you are going to be sitting most of the day. I know a lot of people tend to sit like cross-legged or move their legs around during the work hours because you can't sit the same way all day long. So definitely stretch, move, all of those things in the pants that you're trying on before you decide to commit to those for work. So comfort is absolutely essential to that. Plus, I think, especially if you're dealing with some imposter syndrome, like you're feeling like, oh my God, I'm pretending to be a therapist. I really don't know what I'm doing. I'm really nervous about how all of this is going to go. You want to know that you feel good in your outfit. Don't put on necessarily what you think you should be wearing. Maybe like a general idea of what you should be wearing. Like I said, kind of business casual or a little bit more formal. But make sure the clothes that you're putting on are clothes you feel comfortable in, because if you're spending all day adjusting and pulling straps and pulling your neck down because it's too high and all these other things, you are not going to be comfortable. You're not going to be fully yourself. Clients are going to read that. You might come across as a little bit distracted even if you're not fully engaged or you're so worried about like, God, my stomach's hurting with how these pants are cutting into them. That's not going to be good. So make sure that you feel good in the clothes that you have on. You feel like this is your uniform and you're good in it and it's comfortable and it makes you feel the most like you. Because if you don't feel the most like you, you're not going to seem as authentic and it's going to be harder to build that relationship with clients. So definitely focus on that. And most people starting out with a work wardrobe, whether you are a brand new therapist or you're in a new setting, you probably don't have a ton of money to just be blowing on clothes. So that's why it's good to remember you don't need the nicest everything. You don't need it to be the fanciest. Just make sure you are buying clothes in a smart way, meaning clothes that you can mix and match. So lots of neutrals, a couple bright things mixed in, I guess different cardigans to mix and match with different shirts that you have. Some long sleeve stuff, some short sleeve stuff, some khaki pants, blue pants, black pants, all of the things. So then that way you can make sure that you've got some variety. Shop where you feel comfortable. If you're like, Target's got some good deals and pants are on sale this week, who cares? Nobody's gonna be checking your tags to see where you got stuff. If you feel good in it, that's all that matters. So make sure at least starting out, you have what they call like a capsule wardrobe, meaning like a few good staples. Again, the great black pants, the really good dark jeans, the sweater you feel awesome in, things like that. And then you can sort of mix and match those as the weeks go on. What's great about being a therapist is you typically see people, unless you're in like a hospital setting and you see them every day, you tend to see people like once a week. So it's okay if you've got the same pants on Monday that you had on the next Friday. Like, you can kind of mix them up, but I think most people won't even know. So get enough clothes that you feel comfortable. You can get through the week of work. You can just feel more like yourself. I've known some therapists that create their own uniform, essentially, where they're like, oh, I have my black pants and my white shirt and my gray cardigan. And that's pretty much what they wear every day, or some variation of that. So if that works for you and that makes your life simple because you don't really care that much about clothes, or you don't want to have to worry about that on top of other stuff, then do what you got to do. But that's an option too. But just try to mix and match stuff, and try not to spend too much money on clothes in the beginning, because your style will change. I know in jobs that I worked, like in the community mental health job that I mentioned, in the beginning I was like, oh my gosh, I look really young. I am going to be working with all ages. I really need to make sure that like I look professional. So I had more of the business pants, the black dress pants and the flats and whatever. And then over time I was like, people are out here wearing jeans. I'm literally doing sidewalk chalk. I am using Play-Doh that I'm now like sitting in. Like, let me just get jeans because they can withstand a lot more of this stretchy jeans, but jeans. So look at that. Look at like the population. So have enough clothes in the beginning to get you through the first couple weeks till you can like feel out what other people are wearing, what kind of population you're going to be working with, and then expand later on. Another big piece of what to wear as a therapist is accessories. Now, I know that might sound really strange to most people, like, what does it matter what kind of accessories you have as a therapist? It matters a lot depending on the setting you work with, or the setting you're at, or the population that you work with. So for the most part, if you were in a setting that might be a little riskier, say like a hospital setting or a detox setting or prison, or working with very young children, don't wear necklaces. Be very cautious with what you have around your neck, because there's been a lot of cases where people have, like patients, clients, have become maybe a little bit more violent. And that's one of the first easiest things that they can do to trap you. So I really don't want to scare you, but these are some of the things, again, that are not always talked about in grad school. So you need to be prepared. Maybe don't wear necklaces if you are going to be working with populations that have a tendency to be more violent. Like I said, like little kids who they don't know, they're just up and reaching for stuff, depending on how young they are that you're working with. Same with earrings. Try not to wear earrings that are too dangly or have too much going on, because then that's something else that people can quickly grab if there's some sort of like outburst or crisis. So be cautious about those things. Usually a watch is a pretty good idea, but you want to make sure that you are not constantly looking at it. So if you're somebody that thinks you're going to be looking at it often, don't put a bunch of clocks up in your office instead. And, know that if you're wearing a wedding ring, that immediately says something about who you are and what your status is to the population you're working with. So just be a little cautious of that. Not that you shouldn't wear it or that you absolutely should, but just understand what that means, that you are kind of exposing yourself by wearing that ring. Like, they immediately know that you are married. So you may have more questions about that type of stuff. If you don't have a ring, that's going to bring about other questions. Why aren't you married? Things like that. There's always going to be questions and things that clients are going to ask. But from a safety perspective, be very cautious with what type of accessories you have on and kind of plan accordingly for that. And the last part about what therapists should wear, or what you can wear as a therapist, is make sure that somewhere in there you're showing your personality. I think that is a big piece of what is sometimes missing from this field, is like the clients we work with aren't cookie cutter. We are not, or we shouldn't be super cookie cutter. So I think one of the big turnoffs for a lot of people when it comes to therapy is they're worried that their therapist is going to seem really stuffy or too medical, too much like a doctor, too formal, like things like that they're used to in other parts of like the medical field. And I think certain populations, certain personality types, they're going to want a therapist that looks like them. And there will be people that look like you out there. So if you want to have bright colored hair, and you're at a facility that doesn't care, which a lot of them honestly don't, but make sure that you are you. So if that's a big part of who you are, is you always have different colored hair, there will be certain clients that see that, whether it's in person or on the company's website or whatever else, that are like, I want to see him. I want to see him. You know, same thing with tattoos. You know, if you've got tattoos, again, clients might ask about them. But for the most part, there's going to be some clients that are like, oh, okay, well, they can't judge me for my tattoos because they have them too. And that is going to be a huge bonding experience with you before they've ever even talked to you, because they see themselves in you. So I think most people feel, if I'm at a certain job, I need to blend in. I need to look professional. And that definition may be different than what it should be. So when I said stuff earlier about like, make sure you kind of gauge what other people are wearing. Yeah, you want to make sure you're following like the dress code of the place and you fit in enough. But have your 10 ear piercings if that's what you got going on. You know, like have your bright colored hair if that's what you like. You know, if you have tattoos, cool, show them off. If there's certain piercings that, again, your place is fine with that. If you got your nose pierced, whatever, there's gonna be some clients gonna be like, that's awesome. Or, oh, I used to have one. Or, oh, I wasn't sure if I could put mine in for the session today. It's fine. So you will attract people who not only need therapy, but feel like they see themselves in you. So I get it if in the beginning you try to tone down some of that, feel out the place, feel out your supervisor, feel out a little bit more about what everybody else has going on, but make sure that somewhere along the way you are embracing who you are as a therapist, because that is what is going to attract people, and that is what is going to make them want to work with you and stay with you and work on themselves while working with you, because maybe they'll feel a little bit less judged, or maybe they'll feel more seen because you guys have something major in common that society frowns upon. It doesn't. Look at how different everybody looks now. So if anybody is frowning upon it, then they're probably like super outdated and not cool. So, you know, let people do what they want to do is my thing. Like maybe I wouldn't have bright colored hair, but I think it looks awesome for other people. So you do you. But try not to stifle those parts of yourself because you're concerned about how that's going to come across. Because I swear, the right client, the right place, the right time, that will be exactly what somebody needs. So show personality. If you only like bright colors, go for it. If you love heels and you're like, nobody else here wears them, but that's what I like, I feel taller and more confident, do it. So have the things that make you feel most like you, because that is the only way you will do the best work. So there's a few different ideas, what to wear as a therapist, how to present yourself, things like that. But again, ultimately, the biggest one to remember is to be authentic to who you are. You can't sit here and ask clients to come in and be really vulnerable and personal and open up about these things with you that maybe they've never talked to anybody else about in their life. And you're here stifled, smaller, uncomfortable, and hiding. It's just not gonna work. So be you, be colorful, be fun, be tatted up, be whatever it is that you want to be and your setting allows you to. And if at the same time the setting you're at tries to stifle that, get your hours or whatever you got to do. Start looking for other places. Find the setting that matches you, because the longer you're stifled, the more resentful you're going to be about the place and the less you're going to grow. So be you. Clients will love it. Well, hopefully this episode was helpful and you got some good tips on what to wear as a therapist. But tune in to the next episode. Subscribe to my channel below so you can stay on top of everything that's coming your way. And I will see you soon. Thanks. Bye.